Ever wondered how to know the amount of fabric to use for a shoulder ruffles like this? Then the tutorial I'm about to do is for you.
Hey everyone, you're welcome to my channel. My name is Giwari Joy Ighodala, aka Joydala. Today's video, I'm going to be explaining to you how to determine the quantity of organza to buy when making ruffles. Okay, ruffles can be made on our dresses around the shoulders or around the knee or any part of the dress that you may like. So how do you determine the amount of fabrics to buy before you start? You know, there are some calculations you just need to make, and then you know the exact amount of fabrics to buy, you know the exact amount of organza that you need. Okay, so that is what I am going to be teaching you today. So if it is what you would like to learn, then be sure to watch this video to the end. Thing is to know the round body measurement. The round body. Okay, so you just place your tape around your client to know how our round body. Okay, so once you know your round body, then you can begin to do your calculation. So before we go to the board, assuming we are using a round body of 48, I have 48 right now. Then the next thing to determine is the spacing. How far apart do you want the ruffles to be? Do you want it to be ½ inch, 1 inch, 1.5, or even 2 inches apart? Okay, and then another thing to consider is the organza itself. How do you intend to space the organza? Are you going to be spacing it at 8 inches intervals or at 10 inches interval? So once you know all this, then it is very, very easy to calculate the amount of fabric you need. Now for today's example, we're going to be using a round body of 44 inches. Because the client's body, round body, is 44 inches. Our bust circumference is 38 inches. So let's go to the board now. Let me quickly show you how to do the calculation. So the things to consider: first, the round body or shoulder round. And then the next thing is the spacing. Ruffles spacing. Ruffles spacing. E.g., is it ½ inch? Is it 1 inch? Is it 1.5 inch? Or is it 2 inches? And then the next thing is the organza spacing. For the organza spacing, do you want it to be 8 inches? 10 inches, and so on. So the spacing of the organza also determines how full you want it to be. Okay, so the example we are working with is shoulder round of 44 inches. Shoulder round of 44 inches. So this shoulder round of 44 inches, assuming you are going to use a 1 inch spacing. If you are using a 1 inch spacing for a shoulder round of 44 inches, that is 44 divided by 1, you are going to have 44 lines. So when you cut out the one you are going to sew the organza on, you know that long strip that you are going to cut like this. I have a video of how to sew ruffles, so you can watch that if you have not yet watched. So this is 44. So if you are going to have a spacing of 1 inch, you are going to have 44 lines. You are going to be having 44 lines. So this is what I mean. You are going to have, if your spacing is going to be 1 inch apart,
like this. So at the end of the day, we'll have 44 lines. But if your spacing is going to be 1.5, for 1.5 spacing, you simply divide the 44 by 1.5. And that will give us 29.3. So let's say 29 lines. So if you tend to use 1.5, it means that your spacing, you are going to have 29 lines at the end of the day. So by the time you place your tape, you are marking at 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. At the end of the day, you are going to have 29 lines. Also, if you tend to use a 2-inch spacing, you also simply divide a round body or the shoulder round divided by number, by spacing. Shoulder round divided by ruffles spacing. So shoulder round is 44. The ruffle spacing is 2. That will give us 22. So at the end of the day, we are going to have 22 lines. Okay, so that is how you determine the number of lines to draw on the base that you are going to use for the ruffles. Now, after knowing the lines like this, the next thing now is to determine the organza spacing that you are using. If you tend to use 8 inches spacing, 8 inches spacing for 44 lines, for this first example, you simply multiply 44 by 8. Because the reason why I'm multiplying, we are trying to know the quantity of organza to use. So you multiply 44 by 8, and when you multiply that, you are going to have 352. You are going to have 352. And then remember that a yard of organza is 36 inches, and then the length is 60. And usually when we are working with organza, because we cannot use the full 60, we always divide it by 2. And once you divide by 2, it then gives us 30. So this 352, you divide it by 36 to know the total number of organza. So divide by 36. So we divide 352 by 36. We divide 352 by 36. We are going to have 9.77. 9.77. We are going to have 9.77. And then we can go ahead to approximate this to 10. You can approximate this to 10. Okay, so remember that the organza is by 60, and we don't use the full 60. You know, when making rubber, we always divide it by 2. Assuming we are using the full 60, then we would have needed 10 yards. But because we are not using the full 60, we are dividing by 2. So we divide this 10 also by 2. So by the time we divide this 10 by 2, we are going to have 5. So for a round body of 44 inches with a spacing of 8 inches, with organza spacing of 8 inches, we need 5 yards of fabric. Okay, so I'll take that again. A round body of 44 inches. Round body of 44 inches with organza spacing
of 8 inches, we need 5 yards of organza. So that is how you just know the quantity of organza that you are going to need. Now, assuming we are working with the second one, which is the 29 lines. So you just do the same thing. This 29, the number of lines, you multiply it by organza spacing. So you multiply the number of lines by the organza spacing. So for our second example, the number of lines is 29 and the organza spacing is 8. So by the time we multiply 29 by 8, we are going to have 232. And then to this 232, we divide it by 36. 232 divided by 36. And that will give us, you can use your calculator, that will give us 6.44. 6.44. So you can always approximate once you have decimals like this. Okay, you can always approximate. So this 6.44, we now divide it again by 2. The reason why we are doing that is that we are not using the full organza. We are not using the length of by 60. We are not using the full length of by 60. We always divide it by 2. So that is why we are also dividing this by 2. And by the time we divide this by 2, we are going to have 3.22. And we can approximate this to 3.5. Okay, so the quantity of organza that we need for the quantity of organza that we need for a round body of 44 inches with 8 inches spacing is 3.5 yards. Is 3.5 yards. So you also go ahead to calculate for if you are working with 2 inches spacing. It's the same method. So let me just wipe here. So our number of lines multiplied by organza spacing. So from our earlier explanation, when the space is going to be 2 inches apart and the round body is 44, when we divide 44 by 2, we have 22 lines. So our number of lines now is 22. 22. And then the spacing we want for the organza is 8. So by the time we multiply 22 by 8, we are going to have 176. And then a yard of organza is 36. So we divide 176 by 36. And that will give us 4.8. Full length of organza is 60, but we don't work with 60. We always divide by 2. So we also divide 4.8 by 2, and that will give us 2.4. Okay, 2.4. And you can easily approximate this to the nearest, which is 2.5. So we need 2.5 yards. So a round body of 44 inches, okay, with 2 inches ruffle spacing with 2 inches ruffle spacing and 8 inches organza spacing. Need 2.5 yards of organza. So that is how you determine the quantity of organza to use. So this last example, let's do it with 10, with the spacing now with 10. What will it give us? So if our number of spacing is 22, our number of lines is 22, and the organza spacing we want to use 10, that will give us 220. So the next thing to do now is to divide this 220. We divide it by 36. We divide 220 by 36. So that will give us 6.4. And then to this 6.4, we divide by 2. And that will give us 3.2. You know, we cannot have 0.2 in a yard. They will not cut half yard for 0.2 for you. But we can approximate it to the nearest yardage, which is 3.5 yards. So for a round body of 44 inches, and we want to have the spacing of 2 inches, and we are using the organza spacing of 10 inches, we will use a total of 3.5 yards of fabric. So you see that it is different when you are using 8 inches organza spacing. 8 inches organza spacing gave us 2.5 yards. So you see that the yardage, they differ. So this is how to calculate the quantity of organza needed even before you start. Not that you now go to the market, you just buy any amount, or you guess the amount, and then after marking your lines, you now discover that you are short of organza. No, you don't need to do that. So the first thing to do is just to do your calculation. So once you've done this simple calculation, you know the amount, the exact amount of quantity of organza to use, and then you go for it. So I hope you find these tutorials helpful. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, and also like my videos, share my videos. And if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, I think you can encourage me by subscribing, and I really appreciate that. For you who is a returning subscriber, I want to say thank you for supporting my channel. More videos will be coming your way by the grace of God this month. So until next time when I come your way again, I remain Joy Idala. Bye for now.